"Stop trying to be my dad. You're just the guy who pays for things," my son sneered. I smiled, said understood, then drained his college fund, paid off my mortgage, and sold his precious Mustang. By morning, he was filling out job applications. I never thought things would get this bad between us. I married my wife, Sarah, when her son Ethan was just 8. His biological father wasn't around, and I stepped in the best I could. At first, Ethan was distant, but polite. Over the years, though, he started seeing me less like family and more like a bank. Every time he wanted something, new clothes, expensive gadgets, upgrades for his crit, was expected, not asked. I didn't mind helping at first. I loved Sarah, and I wanted Ethan to feel secure. But as the years passed, gratitude disappeared. What replaced it was entitlement. The final straw came when I reminded Ethan to study for his upcoming exams. He was sprawled on the couch, scrolling his phone, barely listening. Then came that line, sharp, cold, and dismissive. "Stop trying to be my dad. You're just the guy who pays for things." The words hit like a punch, but in that moment, something inside me hardened. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just said one word, understood. He smirked, thinking he'd won some kind of battle. But what he didn't realize was that I wasn't planning to keep playing this role anymore. That night, I logged into the account I'd been maintaining for years, Ethan's college fund. I had worked extra hours, picked up side gigs, and cut back on personal luxuries to keep that account healthy. It had grown to a solid 6 figures, enough to cover tuition, housing, and even leave him a safety net after graduation. But why should I keep sacrificing for someone who openly dismissed me as nothing more than a wallet? Within 2 hours, I liquidated the fund and transferred it into my own account. The next morning, I wired the money to pay off the remainder of my mortgage. For the first time in decades, my house was fully mine. No debt, no strings attached. The freedom felt intoxicating, but I wasn't done. Sitting in the driveway was Ethan's pride and joy, a cherry red Mustang I had helped him buy last year. He loved that car more than anything, constantly bragging to his friends about it. I found the paperwork, listed it online, and within a week it was gone. The money went straight into my savings. When Ethan discovered what I'd done, he exploded. He screamed, accused me of betrayal, even called me heartless. But I simply reminded him of his words. He said I was just the guy who pays for things. Well, I've decided I'm done paying. From now on, you're responsible for yourself. The next day, he had no choice but to get a job. For the first time in his life, Ethan was about to learn the meaning of earning his own way. Ethan stomped around the house the next morning, slamming doors, cursing under his breath, and refusing to speak directly to me. Sarah tried to calm him down, but she was just as shocked as he was. "You sold his car? You emptied his college fund?" "Samuel, don't you think that's extreme?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Extreme," I repeated calmly, sipping my coffee. "What's extreme is me working overtime for years only to be told I'm just a wallet. What's extreme is him taking everything for granted. I didn't do this to punish him, Sarah. I did it because I'm done being disrespected." Sarah didn't know how to respond. She opened her mouth, then shut it again. Ethan, meanwhile, stormed back into the kitchen, his face red with anger. "You can't do this. That money was for me. That car was mine." "No, Ethan," I said evenly. "The money was mine. I earned it. The car was bought with my credit and my cash. You've contributed nothing. You've coasted while I carried. Not anymore." His jaw clenched, his fists balled. "You'll regret this. Mom won't let you get away with it." I turned to Sarah, waiting for her to back him up. But she didn't. Her silence spoke louder than any words. That day, Ethan went out sulking and returned late, quieter than usual. The Mustang was gone, the safety net vanished, and for the first time he seemed to realize I wasn't bluffing. The following week was brutal for him. He applied for jobs at fast food joints, retail stores, and even a local gas station. Each rejection chipped away at his arrogance. He wasn't used to being told no, and one manager told him, "We're looking for someone with a better attitude." He stormed home and ranted for hours. "You see," he snapped at me, "this is your fault. Nobody respects me. Nobody wants to hire me." "No, Ethan," I replied calmly. "They don't want to hire someone who acts entitled. You've been given everything. Now you have to prove you can earn something." He hated hearing that, muttered insults, stomped around, and even threatened to just drop out of everything and move in with his friends. I shrugged. You're an adult. Do what you want, but I'm not financing it. Days passed, and reality began to settle in. He started waking up earlier, dressing better, rehearsing how to answer interview questions. For the first time, he was putting effort into something that wasn't handed to him. Sarah noticed the shift too. One night, after Ethan had gone to bed, she whispered to me, I don't agree with everything you did, but maybe it's working. He's actually trying. I've never seen him this motivated. I nodded. Sometimes you have to let people fall before they learn to stand. And as much as Ethan resented me, I could see the cracks forming in his arrogance. For the first time in years, he was being forced to face the real world and he was scared. A week later, Ethan finally landed a part-time job at a grocery store. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't exciting, and it definitely wasn't the dream he had in mind when he bragged about cruising around in his Mustang. But it was working for once. It was his responsibility. The first night he came home, his uniform wrinkled and smelling faintly of produce and sweat, he tossed his name badge onto the counter. This is humiliating, he muttered. Do you know how many people from school saw me bagging groceries today? They were laughing at me. I set down the newspaper and looked at him. Good. Let them laugh. You'll learn more about yourself in that job than you ever did behind the wheel of that car. His glare could have burned holes through me. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Watching me suffer? No, I replied evenly. I'm watching you grow, or at least I hope you will. The next few days were rocky. Ethan complained about everything: the customers, the hours, the managers who didn't respect him. They treat me like I'm some nobody, he whined one night. You are a nobody to them, I said firmly. You're just another employee until you prove otherwise. That's how the world works. He hated that answer. But little by little, something started to change. I noticed he came home a bit quieter each night, less focused on ranting, more exhausted from actual effort. Sarah, though still uneasy about the way I'd handled things, admitted she saw improvement. He's still mad at you, she said softly one evening as we cleaned up dinner. But he's starting to understand. He even mentioned saving his paychecks. That made me pause. Saving? She nodded. Not much yet, but it's a start. I think he's realizing money doesn't grow on trees. Sure enough, the next weekend, Ethan skipped hanging out with friends because he didn't want to blow his whole paycheck. Hearing that was like music to my ears. For the first time, he was connecting effort with value, but the cracks in his pride weren't gone yet. One Saturday, he cornered me in the garage. You had no right to take that car from me, he snapped, his voice shaking. It was mine. I worked hard for my grades. I earned it. I looked him dead in the eye. No, Ethan, I worked hard for the money that bought it. Grades don't earn you cars. Hard work does. Real work. But you're only just beginning to understand. He stormed off, furious again, but this time his anger didn't linger. By Monday morning, he was back at the store, clocking in without complaint. That night, as I watched him stumble in with tired eyes, I realized something. My son had finally taken his first step into adulthood. He still resented me, still thought I'd been cruel, but deep down, I could see it. The lesson was sinking in. It had been about a month since Ethan started working at the grocery store. The once cocky teenager who strutted around in his Mustang now dragged himself home with sore feet and a paycheck that barely covered gas and fast food. Slowly, the arrogance started to wear off. One evening, he came into the kitchen while I was going through bills. He tossed his pay stub onto the counter. What? $87. That's it. For all that work. His voice carried both frustration and disbelief. I picked it up, looked it over, and handed it back. Welcome to reality. That's what most people live on. That's why money isn't for wasting. He sighed and slumped into a chair. I thought I had it all figured out. Good grades, college fund, my own car. I thought life was supposed to just work out. I leaned back, studying him. For the first time in a long while, I didn't see arrogance, I saw vulnerability. Life doesn't hand you anything, Ethan. It doesn't care about your grades or your expectations. It only gives back what you put into it. He rubbed his face, exhausted. I guess I never thought about where the money came from. I just thought it was there. That was the crack in his armor I'd been waiting for. Exactly, you thought it was just there. But it wasn't. Your mom and I worked for every cent. That Mustang wasn't magic. That college fund wasn't free. You sacrificed so you could have a future, and you treated it like it was owed to you. For a long time, he said nothing. The silence was thick, filled with years of resentment and misunderstanding. Finally, he muttered, "I didn't mean it, what I said that day, about you just being the guy who pays for things." The words caught me off guard. I hadn't expected an apology, not yet. I folded my arms, keeping my tone calm. "Maybe you didn't mean it, but you believed it in that moment, and honestly, it's how you've been acting for years." He nodded slowly, eyes fixed on the floor. "I guess I just didn't know how much you actually do. I took it all for granted." It wasn't a full apology, but it was a start. More importantly, it was real. That weekend, I saw something that made me pause. Ethan came home from his shift, and instead of collapsing on the couch, he went straight to his room. When I checked later, he was sitting at his desk with his laptop open, a spreadsheet pulled up. "What's this?" I asked, leaning against the doorframe. "Budgeting," he said simply. "If I work 20 hours a week, I can save about $200 a month, maybe more if I cut back on eating out. I think I want to build my own savings instead of waiting for handouts." For the first time in years, I smiled at him not as a frustrated parent, but as a proud father. Ethan was starting to see the bigger picture. But just as things seemed to be improving, an unexpected twist shook everything again. For a while, I thought the worst was behind us. Ethan seemed to be turning a corner, worked his shifts, saved a little money, and even started helping out around the house. Small things, taking out the trash without being told, doing the dishes when it wasn't his turn. It wasn't much, but for Ethan, it was progress. But progress rarely moves in a straight line. One Friday night, I heard the sound of an engine outside. My heart sank as I peeked through the blinds and saw a familiar shape in the driveway. The Mustang, Ethan's old car, except this time, it wasn't his. His friend Kyle had bought it, and Ethan was behind the wheel, grinning like the king of the world again. He came inside, tossing me the keys like it was some grand gesture. Kyle said I could drive it whenever I want. "Isn't that awesome?" My jaw clenched. Awesome. "That car was part of the problem, Ethan, and here you are acting like nothing's changed." He shrugged, unfazed. "Relax, Dad. I earned it. I've been working. I deserve to have some fun." The entitlement was back, and it stung worse this time, because I'd let myself believe he was learning. That weekend, the bubble burst. Ethan was supposed to cover a Saturday shift at the store. Instead, he went joyriding with Kyle. When his manager called, I answered the phone. Disappointment in her voice hit me harder than I expected. "Ethan's a good worker when he shows up," she said carefully, "but if he keeps missing shifts, we'll have to let him go." When he came home, I confronted him. He skipped work. Again, he rolled his eyes. It was one shift. Not a big deal. "Not a big deal," I snapped. "You think jobs are toys you can just drop whenever you feel like it? This is exactly why I took away your safety net. You don't take responsibility seriously." He fired back, voice sharp. "You don't get it. You've already had your life, your job, your house. I'm just starting mine. Why can't you let me live a little?" Those words hit hard. For a second, I wanted to yell, to throw his own failures back in his face. But I didn't. Instead, I spoke slowly, carefully. Because if you don't learn responsibility now, you won't have a life worth living later. For once, he didn't have a comeback. His face fell, and he stormed off to his room, slamming the door behind him. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the wall. I knew this wasn't over. He was at a crossroads either. He'd learn from this, or he'd fall deeper into the same pattern. And as much as I wanted to control the outcome, I couldn't. He had to make the choice himself. But I had no idea how close we were to the breaking point or that his next choice would change everything between us. My son was quieter after that night. The arrogance that used to coat every word had peeled away, leaving someone I hadn't seen in years, a boy trying to figure out where he belonged. For the first time in a long while, he started asking me questions. It's not about money or favors, but about life, about responsibility, about the choices that shape a man. One evening, he came home from his shift at the grocery store. His uniform was wrinkled, his shoes scuffed, but his eyes carried a weight I hadn't seen before. He dropped a small stack of bills on the table and said, "That's my first paycheck." I nodded, letting the silence stretch. He waited for me to scold him or maybe to praise him, but instead I said, "Feels different when you earn it, doesn't it?" Swallowed hard, then nodded. "Yeah, it does." Weeks turned into months. The Mustang sat in the driveway with a for sale sign taped to the windshield. Every time he passed it, I saw his jaw tighten. Eventually he came to me and said, "Don't sell it yet. Let me buy it back from you, fair and square." That was the first moment I believed he understood. It wasn't about punishment anymore. It was about accountability. His mother noticed the change too. At first, she thought I'd been too harsh. But one afternoon, she called me and said, "He talks to me differently now. He actually listens." There was a pause before she added softly, "You did the right thing." The truth is, I hadn't wanted to be the bad guy. No parent does. But when my son told me I was just the guy who pays for things, he forced me to hold up a mirror. Maybe I had made it too easy for him. Psst. Maybe I had mistaken providing for him with preparing him. Now, I watch him save, plan, and most importantly, take ownership of his life. He's not perfect, neither am I, but there's respect between us again. Something stronger than money could ever buy. And as for me, I sleep better at night knowing the mortgage is paid off, the lessons have been taught, and my son is finally learning what it means to be a man. Made it this far? Smash that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and hit subscribe for more.